Hello, Lovelace, and welcome to today's English lesson. We're carrying on with our figurative language by focusing in on idioms and extended metaphors. So our LO for today is, can I identify idioms and extended metaphors? Now, both of these were mentioned a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about figurative language, but I wonder if you can remember. Metaphors were mentioned in the previous lesson. An extended metaphor is simply one where that same imagery, that same idea is carried on over a longer period, but we'll look at that later in the lesson. We're going to start with idioms. Now, an idiom is a phrase which people use in everyday language, but which do not make sense literally, but we still understand what they mean. These are phrases that have been passed down through generations. And if we actually analyze them, if we actually look at the words, then they make no sense at all. But as a phrase, we understand what they're talking about. Now, some of them are very, very common, everyday pieces of language. Others are a little bit more rarely used, a little bit more tricky, or we might not understand them. We might not have come across them before. Okay. So an idiom is an expression that has a meaning apart from the meaning of its individual words. So as I say, if we took it apart as a sentence into all the words, it wouldn't really make sense, or it certainly wouldn't mean what it means as an idiom, as a phrase. So here's one. It's raining cats and dogs. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard that phrase before. But do any of you genuinely think if you step foot outside your house, you are going to be hit by a flying cat, say, or a German shepherd drops out of the sky? No, none of us think that's actually going to happen. So this is what we mean by the actual words in the sentence don't actually make sense when it comes to the meaning. We know it's raining cats and dogs. The literal meaning would suggest that cats and dogs are literally falling from the sky. But we interpret it, we understand it to mean that it's just raining hard. If it's raining cats and dogs, then it's raining heavily. Okay, so these are just phrases that have been passed down. They don't actually mean what the words say, which can be confusing, can be very, very difficult if you're learning a language. So a few more examples. To stick your neck out. I wonder how many of you during your lives have ever stuck your neck out. Now, to stick your neck out is to say or do something that is bold and a bit dangerous. A similar idiom that's used for slightly more dangerous situations is to go out on a limb. In both idioms, the idea is that you put yourself in a vulnerable position. Okay? We're not walking around with our heads stuck up in the air because we've stuck our neck out. It's about being brave and stepping into a situation that you're a little bit worried about, a little bit wary of, but you've been brave and stuck your neck out. You've had a go. Okay? And similarly, go out on a limb. It's to outside your comfort zone and to actually have a go at something that you think is a little bit dangerous. Okay. Another one. To break the ice. You go to a party, you might be asked to say something needs to happen to break the ice. And it does not mean that we've got a frozen pond and we're going to hit it with a hammer. To break the ice is to be the first person to say or do something with the expectation that others will then follow. So another idiom, for a similar meaning, is to get the ball rolling. So maybe if you're in a meeting or you're just in a group of people and everything's really, really quiet, you might be the first person to speak or the first person to do something. The idea being that everyone else will then follow on. If you start the conversation, other people will join in. Okay, so you're breaking the ice or you're getting the ball rolling. You're getting something started. Okay? To get long in the tooth. Now, you guys, you're not long in the tooth. But we might use this idiom to refer to our grandparents, for example. To get long in the tooth means to get old. Now, originally, the expression was linked to horses. because as horses get older, their gums recede, their gums get lower and lower, so more of the tooth is exposed. So it looks like they've got bigger teeth. So the older a horse, the longer its tooth looks. So to get long in the tooth refers to getting old. Finally, to have a chip on your shoulder, or have a chip on one's shoulder. Now, this is usually an expression to describe a person who acts, as you say, rudely, aggressively, but also in a manner that could be described as aggressively defensive. This person is looking for a fight. So to have a chip on your shoulder means that something's really bugging you. And you can say, and you're just looking for trouble. You're looking for a fight. You're looking for an argument. So not necessarily a physical fight, but you're just out for an argument. Food for thought. Now, these idioms all relate to food. Can you explain what they really mean? So we've got three here. Taking 2 bites of the cherry, selling like hotcakes, and going bananas. Okay, so what do those idioms mean? Have a quick think. Well, taking 2 bites of the cherry means that you have a second go at something. You've messed it up. You've got it wrong the first time. And so you're having a second go. Okay. He went to take the penalty, but missed the ball completely. So had another go and scored. He was taking 2 bites of the cherry. He was having a second go at something he hadn't done properly the first time. Selling like hotcakes means that something is really, really popular. This phrase would have come from bakers, where the sale of the cakes and the bread would have been so much more popular. They would have been a lot busier first thing in the morning when they were fresh out of the oven. Okay, so selling like hotcakes is when the baker is its most popular. So we say, oh, it's selling like hotcakes means it is really, really popular. Going bananas, it's just to go a little bit mad, a little bit silly. Okay, going bananas over something, it's just going a little bit daft. What about this one? To feel like a fish out of water, or be like a fish out of water. Well, its meaning means that you feel uncomfortable because you're in an unfamiliar situation. If you feel like a fish out of water, you feel awkward or uncomfortable because you're in an unusual or unfamiliar situation. So an example, let's put it into a sentence. I don't like going to the big parties they have. I always feel like a fish out of water. Okay, so there you feel uncomfortable in those situations. Or Todd is a country boy raised in a small town in Northumberland and was like a fish out of water when he visited the bustling London. So you can imagine for Todd, he's used to a small village in the countryside. So to arrive in a city would be a very strange situation for him. So we could use the idiom, a fish out of water. So it's that idea of being in a strange or unfamiliar situation. Right, here's 3 for you. Let's see if you can translate them. Give me the meaning of these idioms. So we sometimes refer to a bull in a china shop. What do you think that actually means? To turn someone off. What about that one? Or hang on. Okay. In each case, we've got the cartoons show the actual words in the idiom. So we've got a bull in a china shop. We've got someone with a switch on their back, turned off. And we've got a couple of men here hanging on, literally hanging on to the side of the building. But that's not what the idioms mean. So what do you think? Have a think. What do you reckon? Well, bull in a china shop. Someone who is careless in the way they move and behave. So if you're a bit clumsy, if you're the sort of person that bumps into things, then you might be described as a bull in a china shop. Okay? The idea being that this big animal, if you put him in a china shop, there'd be a lot of breakages. He'd be hitting all the shelves and all the counters, and lots of things would be broken. So we describe someone who's like a bull in a china shop as someone who's a little bit clumsy, careless, bumps into things, knocks things over, drops things, you know, the sort of thing. So someone who's quite careless. What about to turn someone off? Well, that's to disgust someone. If you say or do something that's either offensive or upsetting or hurtful, then you've turned them off to you. Okay. They don't want to know anymore. And to hang on is to persevere, to keep going, to keep trying at something until you get better or get it right. So, bull in a china shop, to turn someone off and to hang on. They don't literally mean put a bull in a shop, put a switch on a person, or hang on to a building. The idioms mean to be careless, to actually discuss someone so that they don't want to know you anymore, or to persevere, to keep going until you get it right or at least improve at something. Right, all these idioms involve numbers. Okay, so we've got a missing number in each one. I wonder if you've heard any of these and can tell me what the numbers are that are missing. Okay, so we've got dressed up to the it is a off, one in a back to square in heaven. Okay, any ideas? Pause the video, have a go at just jotting those down. Now, I'm not going to give you the answers to these. I am going to ask you to fill them in. And then, just go back there. I'm going to ask you to fill them in, write them down, upload them onto Tapestry. Set. And I will let you have the answers at a later date. I'm not going to show you the answers. I'm going to see if you can work them out or maybe find out. So all of these are missing numbers, but what do you think those numbers are? 5 sentences. If you've not done so already, just pause and copy them down. I'm going to move on in a moment. Right, same idea, but this time, each of these idioms is missing an animal. Once again, we've got 5 idioms, 5 sentences where we've got an animal that's missing. So it's raining and dogs. We should all get that one. We've mentioned it already. That child is always crying. Those are just tears. I eat like a or to eat like a. I can smell a Now, all these blanks, these 5 missing words, are all animals. Once again, I'd like you to pause the video, copy these 5 sentences down, and fill in the missing words. Okay, I will let you have the answers at a later date. Now, an extended metaphor. We've just looked at some idioms. An extended metaphor is another way to write a poem. Another way to write a poem is through the use of an extended metaphor. This is where you start with a metaphor and keep within that one idea throughout the poem. So whatever you're comparing something to, you keep that comparison going. It's okay, I'll show you an example in a minute. Explain all the ways that the metaphor might work. Think about movement, sound, looks, and even feelings. So you've got your original metaphor, your starting metaphor, but then to extend it, you carry on with the comparison, but not just thinking maybe about where it looking the same as, but does it sound the same? Does it move the same? Does it feel the same? And so on. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example now. This is a poem by James Reeves, and it's called The Sea. But in here, the extended metaphor uses the idea of the sea being a dog all the way through the poem. So the sea is always being compared to a dog. That's the metaphor. That's the comparison. So the sea. The sea is a hungry dog, giant and grey. He rolls on the beach all day with his clashing teeth and shaggy jaws. Hour upon hour he gnaws the rumbling, tumbling stones and bones, 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 The giant sea dog moans, licking his greasy paws. And when the night wind roars and the moon rocks in the stormy cloud, he bounds to his feet and snuffs and sniffs, shaking his wet sides all over the cliffs, and howls and hollers loud and long. But on quiet days in May or June, when even the grasses on the dune play no more their reedy tune, with his head between his paws, he lies on the sandy shores. So quiet he scarcely snores. Okay, so you can see there are so many comparisons between the sea and a dog. We start at the top. The sea is a hungry dog. Okay, not is like a hungry dog or as hungry as a dog, because this is a metaphor, not a simile. The sea is a hungry dog, giant and grey. So that's appearance, the size of it, the colour of it. He rolls on the beach all day. Well, we know that the sea washes in. As a tide comes in, it washes up the beach. But if you ever take a dog onto the beach, he'll roll around in the sand. So it's a lovely comparison there. Rolls on the beach all day with his clashing teeth and shaggy jaws. So we've got a dog there with his teeth and jaws, but also the rough edges, sort of the white horses on the waves of the sea. Hour upon hour, he gnaws. So a dog might be chewing on a stick or something like that, whereas the sea is constantly gnawing at the beach. It's constantly up and down, chewing its way up the beach with the tide. Oops. Oh, what have I done? Sorry, guys, I've just come out of that. Let's try that again. Here we go. Right. Sorry about that. Technical issues. If we keep going, we look at he bounds to his feet and snuffs and sniffs. Again, it's this idea of the dog jumping to his feet and moving around, but the waves getting bigger. So they're getting higher and again rolling through. But this last verse, on quiet days in May or June, so when it's hot, a bit warmer, there's no wind, even the grasses don't play their tune. So even the grasses aren't moving. It's a really, really still day. Your dog might be too hot, so just lies around on the beach with his head between his paws. And in the same way, the sea is calm, just a gentle ripple as the tide comes in. So some lovely comparisons there in what we call an extended metaphor, because you've not just written one line, you've kept this idea of the dog going all the way through. Now, your task is to use any of the ideas we've talked about this week. So we've looked at similes, we've looked at metaphors, we've looked at personification, and we've looked at idioms. And as well, we've looked at the extended metaphor as well. I would like you to create a poem for me, a figurative poem. I would like you to think about something you want to describe and use some of those tricks, that figurative language to help describe it, to compare it to something. Okay, so in James's case, this was a poem about the sea. We've looked at poems about the sun, or we've looked at a series of similes about the sun. Oh, sorry, metaphors. It wasn't similes, was it? It was metaphors for the sun. You decide what the subject of your poem is. It could be your brother or your sister. It could be your house. It could be your pet. It could be, what else? It could be something of nature. It could be a tree, which we have looked at already this week. It could be a forest. It could be a river. It could be a fish in a river. It could be anything you would like it to be. As long as all your imagery, all your figurative language refers to that one object, that one thing. Okay? If you want to try and do an extended metaphor like the sea, that will be great. That will be a real challenge, but that would be really good. But I'm looking for you to sort of maybe mix it up a little bit and use various types of figurative language. So get some similes in there. Get some idioms in there if you can think of any, if you know any that would work. Get some personification in there. Say how these objects, if you're not doing a person, then you can use personification. Okay? Hopefully that all makes sense. That's clear. Really looking forward to these. I've seen some lovely work so far. Not by everyone yet. I'm still waiting on a few uploads. But I have seen some lovely use of the English language. So well done, guys. Keep it up. That's the end of today. You take care of yourself as usual. Look after those around you. Stay safe. And I will see you all very soon.